Welcome to Matrix Live. This is Matrix Live, the 18th of January 2019. It is Season 3, Episode 11. I am Ben Parr, Developer Advocate on Matrix.org, and I'm today going to be chatting to Jason Robinson. Jason Robinson recently started working with the core team. He's been working on a whole bunch of stuff with Synapse and Scala, similar products. But he actually has been interested in the concept of decentralizations from long before that. So we want to talk about some of his projects. You can actually find Jason as jwink. That's his handle around the interwebs. So you can find him that way. But let's just start by saying hello. Jason, welcome. How are you doing?
Hello. Nice to be here.
Cool. Where are you in the world?
Yeah, I'm in Helsinki, Finland. So snowy right now.
Cool. Okay, so what is your, you've been interested in decentralization and this concept for quite a while. How long have you been thinking about this topic?
I think it all started around 2012, so not that long time ago, depending on the perspective. I heard about diaspora project. Have you?
Okay.
You probably know diaspora.
Diaspora, yeah.
And yeah, it was quite early days for diaspora. I think it started at 2011, and so I got interested because I've always been quite uh, a high social media user, and diaspora was promising a social media platform that anyone can host, but at the same time, you're part of a larger network, which was really interesting for me.
Right, which is the fundamental part of federation.
Yeah. So, I mean, the point that even though we're hosted on different servers, we can interact as if we're on the same server. And I've like to host my own stuff, and so hosting my own social media platform sounded a very cool idea to do. So yeah, I jumped in and started actually learning about decentralization, which wasn't a, a really term I was very familiar with at that time.
So what is the status of diaspora today?
It's alive. It's alive and kicking. I think there's probably around 200 something known servers, maybe 200 to 300,
Okay.
and they're still developing it. I was a part of the core team at some point of time between I think 2014 and 2016, around those times, mainly doing things like project management, communication, some sort of community management, and small tweaks and features and things like that.
Okay.
So they have a small developer team. Diasporafoundation.org if you want to have a
I didn't realize
someone.
that you've been so involved with diaspora, so that's super interesting. Yeah, it must have been very interesting to be there at the beginning of these kind of open federation communities because it's as we know, it's a really self-selecting group of people who get involved with that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a very different approach to community management to something like Twitter, say, where there's a real
Yeah,
central body who can make these decisions.
yeah. I mean, these projects are all quite small. There's a very small core team and some hackers who are doing most of the work, and then the community around it. So,
Okay, so decentralization is it's something that probably everybody watching this is going to be familiar with and care a lot about. But why do you prioritize decentralization? I know you say that you've only been into it since 2012. That's quite a long time in internet world, really. So why is decentralization such an important thing for you?
well, if you look at the, s- the direction of how the internet is developing, it's you could say it's not developing in a very healthy direction with large platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Google basically owning large parts of that and controlling it and being able to some extent dictate the rules of engagement. I think it's really important to that not everyone has to be involved in decentralization personally. I mean, you can't expect everyone to self-host, for example. That's unrealistic. But I think it's important to build tools so that those who are interested in providing a healthy internet can do that. I think that's my main interest in being involved. Yeah. So I think it's important that one of the reasons I'm interested in decentralization or working on these tools is that I'll be able to help provide tools for people to keep the internet healthy.
So on the subject of providing tools for people, what are your thoughts on like how to get people to migrate? Because there's the thing with Facebook and Google. They've got such momentum in terms of the network effect of having a lot of people on there. What have you seen in the last few years? What have you seen work as ways of getting people to migrate, and what should we focus on more?
Well, one thing is focusing on compatible protocols, and also, well, that's only a part of it because you will always have different technologies. So by compatible protocols, I mean that we can build different kinds of platforms that still work together. So the users won't need to create a separate account on each decentralized service. They'll create one which has all the features that they want to use, and they'll be able to communicate with all the other platforms as well. So if we all concentrate on our sort of own stuff without caring about cross compatibility, then you sort of lose that potential network effect. The other thing I think is important is what Matrix is doing, the bridges, which to some extent helps bring people from also the proprietary platforms, where possible. Where sometimes it might not be possible to actually even build a bridge.
Of course. I mean, it depends on the format and to what extent we can sort of get all the features mapped across different platforms, because not every platform is suitable for message sending, for example. So we need to map that.
I think there's also a third thing, which is user discovery, which is not, to be honest, handled very well in the decentralized world, because to some extent it does involve a kind of centralization, because you need to be able to discover your friends who you don't even know that are in the platforms. This could be sort of searching for their Twitter handle, for example.
And that requires often a centralized directory.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is exactly what we don't want. But I mean, Mastodon and Matrix both have this problem today. So it's definitely something that we need to resolve. And I mean, decentralized directories is very expensive across the Federation to query. So there needs to be some kind of compromise around centralization there. I think we're going to see a lot more thoughts on that this year. Okay, so let's talk about what you've been doing since Diaspora. So you created something called, I don't know how to say it. Is it Feneas? Because it's Federated Network Association, I think?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't actually know how to pronounce it in English.
No, it's more of a technical thing.
Feneas, I guess.
Feneas, okay.
Yeah, so during the years of sort of being involved with these communities, there's a few of us at least, probably more, but a few of us at least who've always sort of been thinking that it would be nice to have some kind of organization that that was neutral, non-profit,
Hmm. Hmm.
and would be inclusive to different projects, and would sort of try to push, especially cooperation of decentralized projects, and also offer services to members, and maybe grants through different kinds of funding. And there's been various talk about it with various people, and last summer we banged our heads together with a friend of mine in Germany called Lucas Matt, and we sort of decided at the time to happen, and this happened over beer, so the whole association can be blamed due to beer infusion, I guess. But
Okay.
so we got together and decided to register the association basically,
Hmm.
and the point of the association is, well, the things I just mentioned. So offer services, um, uh, provide training, information, grants to events, sponsor development, all these kind of uh, things that are not associated with a certain decentralized technology project,
Right. Okay.
but more like federated web
Yeah.
technologies in general.
It's conceptual federation rather than a specific technology.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. And have you got any notable successes or stories from this project?
Well, it's kind of early days. Set it was set up in August. It's a
Oh.
non-profit registered in here in Helsinki,
Okay.
and but the member amounts are slowly growing. In November we had only 11 members, and now we just hit 20. So from August there's a sort of a
Yeah.
upwards trend as the information sort of comes out.
Yeah.
I think we're sort of in a bit early stage to say too much about victories, but what we've currently accomplished is setting up some services we provide. For example, a Matrix server, um, and Friendica server, GitLab.
Okay. So you're
And
providing various services, like literal services as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, funded by the membership fees.
Okay. I see.
So it's a way to sort of guarantee that the service doesn't go down by it being hosted by the non-profit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I see. Okay, that's really exciting. And I mean, it's early days, as you say, but it's still a lot of growth. What's the sort of geographic distribution? Like, is the appeal? Do you think there's more appeal in Northern Europe? I seem to see a lot of this stuff coming out of Finland and Germany. Do you think that's a fair assessment, or is that just something I've seen?
I think Northern is definitely. If you go and look at well, if you go and look at some popular decentralized services like Mastodon, and
Hmm.
check where the servers are and the users are, they're going to be in Northern, Central, sort of Western Europe,
Hmm.
and Northern America, and also Asia. So far, the Feneas, we've mostly had interest in Germany and around sort of these sort of Northern Europe, Western Europe, and Northern America as well.
Okay, okay. Well,
Have
so
some
that's
members
actually
there.
pretty widespread around the West then.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Little technical break there. No, Phineas, Feneas.org. This is really promising sounding, and it's also really telling that we're already at a stage with federation and decentralization that there's a need for an independent body. I think that's a really good sign for the whole concept. So I'm really glad that you've taken up the energy to get that going. Can we talk about your other projects? So you've been doing,
Sure.
apart from this, you've been doing some actual coding, and you've made things like the Federation. What is this? The
Yeah. The the-federation.info
Yeah,
website.
yeah.
That was born in late 2013,
Mm.
and it really came out of the because when I joined the diaspora project, uh, it was impossible to say that was the project growing or going down.
Okay.
And that was bothering me because I was doing these sort of outreachy things and shouting about the project, and I didn't know if we even had people uh, getting servers up.
Okay.
So I made this website that basically is has a sort of a scraper. You can register your server there, or someone registers it for you, and it shows on the list. And then every day we scrape those registered sites and check how many users they have and things like that. And it's all like opt-in. You can opt out. You can hide the statistics
Okay.
and things like that. So
Okay, so you
um,
don't crawl, you don't go looking for sites. It's more about people who register with you.
yeah, or I maybe find a list of servers and sort of add them to the list.
I see.
So it's kind of a building an image of what does the decentralized social web look in numbers.
Yeah. So, I mean, so your original motivation was just to have some metrics on diaspora.
Yeah,
Decentralization in general has this problem of how do you keep track of different statistics across the whole network. So it's interesting that even as early as 2013, you were needing to think about these kind of things. Because right now it's still, if somebody said what's the total size of the Matrix user base, we couldn't really say. What you can do is get an image based on users that you can see from a given home server,
yeah,
which matrix.org makes it relatively easy because it's so large within the Federation. But in the future, that hopefully won't be the case. So we need, yeah, it's really important to think about how to do distributed metrics. And you've added Synapse, or sorry, you've added Matrix to this as well.
yes. So slowly, as after I left the diaspora project and started looking at decentralization
Mm.
and federated web, maybe in a more larger context, I added sometime last year also OStatus and Mastodon with its ActivityPub,
Mm-hmm.
and then other ActivityPub servers. And now the latest edition is the Matrix protocol, or Synapse especially.
Yeah, it's kind of
So
on Synapse.
so yeah, it's kind of you have to write a separate parser for each protocol or each kind of server type. So
Mm.
it takes a little time.
So with that in mind, then, was there a meaningful difference when you were writing it between Mastodon and ActivityPub? Because I know that one is an implementation of the other, but in terms of your scraper, was it the same?
Well, um, since we don't actually have a standard for these kind of things, that's one thing I've wanted to sort of propose and get some standardization on server information
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or sort of usage information. That would be really handy because then you could have this one good scraper
Yeah.
and read all these projects.
Yeah.
But failing that, Mastodon requires using their internal API and actually scraping some HTML to get the sign-up status and things like this.
Oh,
And Diaspora and a lot of the other projects have this thing called NodeInfo,
okay.
which has a few different versions. And quite a lot of projects can be read using that one scraper.
Right.
And then I added a specific scraper for Synapse,
Mm-hmm.
which uses one of the API endpoints and then uh, makes a makes a hacky call to one login API, which actually I reverse engineered
Right.
from looking what the write does to
Oh God.
figure out
Okay.
that this.
Right. Okay.
So there's a need for some kind of
Yeah.
standardization there, and that's something I was going to sort of open up into the Synapse
Yeah.
repository maybe at some point.
So you think so? Node info seems to be a good baseline. Is it something that could be added to Synapse and other things?
Yeah, it could be. There's actually two different versions. There's there's the original node info from the diaspora project,
Okay.
which is adopted pretty well across the ActivityPub network as well. Then there's my fork, which attempted to sort of iron out some of the things that were kind of, I felt design-wise a bit tricky to maintain. So yeah, one of those would make sense. I think.
Okay. Okay.
Best candidates. I think.
Well, glad that you're involved and seem like the guy to implement this kind of thing, or at least to push it onwards. Yeah, that's super helpful. All right, we've got more projects here. What is Social Home? Social Home.
So Social Home is when I left Diaspora project, I needed something to do. And part of the reason I left Diaspora was because I wanted to actually, I never really got into Ruby on Rails that much. So I felt that I couldn't use my developer sort of knowledge to help the project that much. So I wanted to write Django, and Social Home is made with Django, which is a Python web framework.
Yep.
And the basic idea is to have a federating home web page. That's the name, Social Home. Right. So you can build your profile using these dynamic grid blocks, which you can use HTML and JS and CSS to sort of create that rich homepage.
Okay.
But at the same time, all the content federates. We're using currently only the diaspora protocol, but more protocols going to be added.
Okay.
And then at some point after I left the diaspora project, I thought that I'll also make it usable for social use. So you can read your stream, you can follow users and so on. So it's a bit like Tumblr, Pinterest, and Twitter mashed up into one. Sorry?
But you host your own page.
Yeah. It runs in either sort of single user mode or multi-user mode, or actually it's kind of always runs in multi-user mode, but you can define a single user homepage.
Right. I see.
So if you, for example, my domain is my homepage at the same time.
Right.
So Social Home is a standard web application. It's got this very grid-like content visualization, which if you've used Pinterest, that will be kind of familiar.
I see.
Or Google Plus, I guess, is one option as well. There's an API as well, but there's no mobile apps at the moment, so it's very sort of a beta phase at the moment. But through the web.
Cool, through the web, yeah. And how many people do you have using it, do you think? Or is it impossible to say?
Well, using the the-federation.info website, currently I know there's 3 servers listed there. 2 of them are run by me. So there's one dude in Ukraine who runs his server.
Okay.
And actually today in the morning, I noticed that someone had set up a Social Home server, so that was pretty cool.
Oh.
See that someone is testing it that far that they've set up there. So, I'm hoping more people sort of step up.
Yeah. Okay.
But my main server has a few hundred active users, I guess, maybe 100 to 200.
Okay.
I think last time I looked.
Oh, that's all right. Look, I mean, this is exciting stuff. It's just early days. The whole.
Yeah. I mean, it federates with the diaspora protocol, so you sort of get access to those users at the same time.
Yeah.
And currently, I'm adding ActivityPub, which will then increase the federation.
Yeah, naturally. I mean, an ActivityPub has a lot of momentum because of firstly because of Mastodon, but also because it's a W3 spec. So we should hope to see some momentum on it once it gets going. All right. So, despite believing in and working with Matrix, I don't necessarily think that the future is guaranteed to be decentralized. I think we all in this community kind of hope that, but the the nature of the web today is highly centralized, and so momentum is not on our side overall. What do you think? What do you think about the future? What do you think in terms of like products that we should be paying attention to, and how optimistic are you that we can really make a decentralized future?
Well, as you say, there's big dangers ahead. There's political powers who are trying to control things, and corporate powers who are trying to use use control for profit. But um, I I think there's some hope from all the, at least on the uh, federated social side, through, well, for example, the W3C finalizing the work on activity pub, and thus sort of unifying the federated social web a bit. And we've seen a lot of expansion in, for example, Mastodon, and there's some also the traction around Matrix, I believe, is promising. Um, so yeah, I do hope. I don't think that these kind of decentralized technologies will replace the mainstream
Mm.
social media sites, but then I don't personally think that's necessarily the ultimate thing we have to do.
Sure.
I think it's enough that we can provide viable technologies with enough um, users and network effect that people people constantly not only hear about them, get involved, bring their friends, and sort of do small growth there. But there's another thing I think that would be important would be to get more organizations behind these technologies, corporations behind these technologies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who get nervous when the word corporation is mentioned. Um, for example, due to reasons that uh, Facebook and Google were using XMPP,
Hmm.
sort
Hmm.
of and they maybe feel betrayed by things like that. But I uh, I think to reach some kind of mainstream status with any of these technologies, we're gonna have to involve money in it in some way,
Okay.
and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it needs to obviously happen in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we have to pay a lot of attention to in as much as yeah, you raised the issue, what happened with Google and Java and XMPP. Yeah, it has definitely made people wary. And then there's also the whole, the cultural differences between the decentralized and open source and DIY kind of communities versus the mainstream tech, essentially. But I found it really interesting what you said about we don't need to replace the mainstream services per se. It's enough to provide a viable alternative for anybody who's interested in it and anybody who might want to benefit from those network effects and get their friends
Yeah,
involved. I think that's a really optimistic and good way of thinking about this. So
yeah, I don't like the idea of being on a warpath with kind of
no, okay,
the big giants. So that's kind of, it's better to sort of push what you love than sort of try and take the other ones down by force.
yeah, okay.
That's my
Oh
kind of
man, that's
motto.
really cool. That's a really optimistic and positive way of looking at it. So thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a good place to end, I think. Jason Robinson, thank you very much. You can find Jason all over the internet. He is JWink on just about every platform going. And yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to talk to you.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.